Alright, got started here this morning on the Corvette. So this is my ground to the harness here. So I have the power to the fan and main power wired there. I have my ground wired right there. Now this white wire will be wired into the cabin, and that will be the switched wire, and I just have to hook up this blue wire over there to the wires that go down to the starter. That will be the purple wire. So that's next on the agenda. We're going to get that cleaned, taken apart. We're going to pull this apart and clean it. I took one of them out yesterday and it was pretty corroded, so I'm going to try to get them all out and cleaned up and find some dielectric grease, put back on them. And then I will be done underneath the engine compartment. I will just hook up some wires and run them through the firewall someplace for these two power lines. So that'll be the next thing, is trying to find a spot where I can just run it through the firewall that's already existing. All right, so next we're going to unplug that junction right there and start cleaning those. All right, here's a little look. You can see how green those wires are right there. And on this side, this one here isn't even all the way in. So we're gonna go ahead and take this apart. We're gonna unpin each one of these wires, clean them up really good, because all of these go down to the starter and to like the tack and things like that. So we want to make sure that those are nice and clean. So we're gonna clean those up, and then that way we can hook up our blue wire from that side to this wire here. All right, so let me find my depinning tool. Okay, so I pulled these two out. This is going to be our wire that goes from the starter solenoid up to the ignition. So this is our start wire, and you can tell it's kind of dirty. Here's one that I just cleaned. I just took this little brass bush I got over at Harbor Freight for $2 and just kind of buffed it out, got it nice and shiny, and then we're going to put some just dielectric tune-up grease on in there to keep that from getting all messed up. I could not find my pinout tool, but if you have a tiny common screwdriver, all you got to do is kind of reach in at the top. There is a little, might be hard to see here, let's give this turned over. There's a little clip on the back, and all you got to do is push it down just a little bit and the wire will slide right out. So we're gonna clean this one up, put the dielectric grease, and then do all of those. And as you can see, there's a bit of corrosion in there too. So, and the other thing I just found is there's a black wire that is on the outside of this casing right here, and it runs down to the starter, and about here the wire is all melted right where my finger is. It's kind of hard to see. So I believe this is an oil sending unit or something. At least that's what it feels like. I haven't crawled underneath to see what it's actually plugged into, but I believe it's a sending unit of some kind on the side of the block here. So it's either oil or temp. I'm going to have to repair that wire because it is melted. So it doesn't feel like the wires are bared, but the wire itself is melted. So I want to get it cleaned up. I'll probably just make a whole new wire and then run it through there and down to whatever plug that is down there. So I'll have to pull that apart and see. But yeah, so just checking things out. So yeah, now we're just gonna clean up the other 3. Yeah, so we have 3 more to clean up, and then that will be ready to go back together. All right, so I got that one out. You can see how corroded it is. These are a little different. As you can see, it's got this weird thing. So what you need to do is push that in just a little bit, and then this piece will slide out. So I'm going to do the same thing I did with the other one. I'm just going to hit it with the wire brush, clean it up, and then we'll put the dielectric grease in there. Okay, so I've cleaned all these, as you can see. I put everything back together. I put some dielectric grease in here. I have my new ignition start to solenoid wire. I went ahead and spliced it in right there. If you're doing one of these projects, this lower harness from the starter up to this junction, you can buy this whole piece. I believe it was $30 or something like that. It wasn't very expensive. So if you ever have one of these that's bad, you can replace it. They were available on Amazon, Eccles, numerous. It's basically a GM harness, so you can pretty much find it. But straight, just I think it's 6 wires. Depending on your application, you may not use all of them. Like mine's only using 5. This doesn't have a wire in it. There is a wire up on this side, but who knows what that wire goes to. I could dig out my diagram and figure it out. But so yeah, if you have a damaged one of these, you can definitely just replace this harness instead of trying to mess with rebuilding it. So something to think about. So I'm going to go ahead and button this up. Then I will go ahead and figure out the length of this wire, connect it, and then start running the wires under the dash or into the dash. All right, so I have run the casing around the wire. I still got a zip tie on that side, but it's in place. And then we come into our junction. There it is. So it's all zipped up. So the only 2 wires left to hook up are the trigger wires, which need to be wired inside. So next thing I'm going to do is I'm letting the car air out for a second. I have the doors open because it's starting to get hot and the inside is really hot. So I need to try to find a spot where I can poke those wires through the firewall here someplace. So I'm going to go inside and see what I can find. I've got this vacuum plug here. I don't know if I can get through that. And this is the throttle cable. I'm not sure if there's enough space on that to get through. So yeah, I'll just need to look for a plug someplace where I can get through the firewall. All right, so that's my next thing. Inside. All right, so we are completely wired up. We have our 2 trigger wires that go through the firewall right here, right next to the throttle cable. I just drilled a separate hole to fit a 1/2-inch casing through, ran the 2 wires through here, and our wire that goes to the starter is hooked up. So everything is hooked up here. On this side we're done, and then if we go in here inside the car, we come in right there, and we come down and around to right here, where the accessory radio tray was in the Corvette, which would have been right about here. I put switches in that panel, so I'll be able to hook these up and have enough wire to pull it away so I can do whatever I need to the switches if I have to do any servicing. But I did a red wire for the start side and a blue wire to the fan, so hot and cold, because those are the 2 colors I happen to have available. So those will be wired in, and so that'll be next. But it is starting to get a little warm, so I'm going to take a break for a couple hours, come back out, and I'll bring the dash and the panel, or not the dash, but the center console gauge set with the switches on it, so I can start wiring up the fuel pump, the fan, and the push to start. So back in a bit. All right, so I got the gauge cluster out, and somewhere along the line I have misplaced the new circuit board that I had bought. This one is burnt. I've gone through all the boxes of parts that I have for this thing. It could be in any stack of paperwork. So I can't find it, so I'm just leaving the bulbs out. I'm not going to mount this completely. I'm just going to get it wired up so that I can use the switches, because like I said, I'm not putting this back together for somebody else. Somebody else can do it. So let's get it in here, get it wired up so that at least it will start the car, and then somebody else can come along and figure out the circuit board. Okay, so I got the gauge cluster mounted. It is not plugged in. Here's the plug for it, because like I said, that circuit board's burnt and I'm not going to burn out one of my gauges or start blowing fuses. So I just put it in here so that I would have access to this panel. This is the panel that I put in. This was where the old stereo used to go. But like I said, this car is really loud, so it's really pointless. So what I have are my wires hanging down that I can plug into. So there's my push to start right there. And then I just will wire one of these switches to the fan and fuel pump. That way you have to have the fuel pump running along with the fan, or it won't start and run. This way you can't overheat it. So should solve a problem, and this way also to keep somebody from just stealing it. So yeah, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put some ends on these wires here, and then I can plug them into the back of the switches. There's a you can reach the open plug back here, so I don't have to take that back down, but this way it's up out of the way. It's starting to make it look more like a car. So I do have the circuit board for the Speedo side. I figured since I was replacing them, I'd just do both, that way everything would work. But I did not buy bulbs, so neither side has bulbs. There's no bulbs or sockets in this one. So it'll be something that I will have to come back to later, or the next owner. Okay, so I have this wire hooked up. This is the push to start wire. I have this wire set. I just need to plug it into one of the open terminals on the back of here. So that's what I have to do there. And then this red wire is going to be our keyed power source to this panel. So this will have a keyed power source. So this will be run over to the fuse panel, or maybe the ignition switch on the column, whichever one I can get the best fitting on. So this is all done. This is all set. So these plugs down here are for the center console, power windows and all that stuff for down here. But I'm not putting any of that in. This is as far as I'm going to go, is just get this wired up so that when I turn the key on, this panel will get hot, and then I should be able to at least start the car. So that's what I'm going to plan on getting this finished up tomorrow. I'm going to dig out the wiring schematic for this car and figure out where I can get a good power feed. And then the other thing I still have to do is wire in the solenoid, which I'm going to put back here in the battery compartment for the fuel pump, which I already have the wire run back there. I just have to hook it all up. So that's what we're going to be working on tomorrow. And then after that, we're just going to wait for the fuel tank strap to come in, and then I can button that all up and go that route. But what I might do, I might drop a line from the pump into a can of gas, and at least turn it over and see if it fires. It hasn't been started in about 2 years, so and there's no exhaust on it. It'd just be open headers, but at least I could at least turn it over. So maybe tomorrow I can do that, at least get it to fire. All right, thanks for watching. Pick up tomorrow. All right, so some things I got done today that I didn't get on video. I on the ignition switch here on the bottom of the steering column. I pulled it apart. The brown accessory wire, I went ahead and made a Y cut, or not, I didn't cut it, but I made a Y wire so that I could run the factory accessories and then power this red wire, which is that red wire, to the accessory panel. And then the other thing I did was wire up the relay for the fuel pump. So that's all in there, and will be up and out of the way. And I will probably mount the relay somewhere right here, but it looks like I need another hand so that I can put a bolt through and lock it down, and then I'll just be able to screw it on there whenever I do that. So that's what I got done so far today. My tank straps came in, so that will be the next thing, is to get the tank put in so that we can drop a battery in this, get the exhaust in, and get it fired up. So that's the end of the wiring, and we will be back on tank install in the next video.